From Citizen TV, this is Tonight with Sam Gituku.
Hello there, thank you for choosing Citizen TV on this 3rd day of April 2025. Tonight on Data Point, we're reflecting on something that is important for the country in the education sector. Recently, President William Ruto indicated that the Court of Appeal had actually cleared the operation of the university funding model. We're looking at that and what exactly transpired. We're also looking at the figures because the Court of Appeal gave the Higher Education Loans Board and other state agencies 14 days to publicize an appeals mechanism for students that are dissatisfied with how they have been banded or how they are being treated in terms of choosing how much money they should be receiving. They have 14 days to inform them that they can actually come and complain with new information. As we do that, we're also looking at what did the funding model say. We're also reflecting on the cost of one of the most expensive courses in the country. This is Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery that a student in Band 5 will spend up to 2.81 million shillings by the end of 6 years. I'll be breaking that down for you to understand what that exactly means, because it's the product or it's the sum of the cost to the family and the loan that the student will have to pay at the end of the course. But also looking at the cheapest course, which is Bachelor of Education, or rather Bachelor of Arts. In some universities, a student in Band 1, meaning a family that has not received more than 6,000 shillings in a month, they'll be paying, or the burden is about 386,000 shillings. We'll be reflecting that during Data Point. But also tonight we have the News Gang reflecting on the events of the week, the politics and other current affairs. We'll have that later on. But first, here are the top stories tonight. Ruto allies, among them Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, heckled in Nyandarua as President Ruto's tour of Mount Kenya region enters day 3.
Inspector General ya National Police Service anaitwa Douglas.
Stay away from politics. LSK slams IG Douglas Kanja for attending and speaking at a political rally in Nyeri. The trial begins. Court moves to murder scene as trial of Sarah Cohen over the murder of Tom Cohen begins.
Mimi naweza kukufanya one-term president. Usipofanya hii, usipofanya hii, usipofanya hii, nahitaji bilioni 10.
10 billion shillings and counting. The unholy trinity of Ruto, Gachagua and Muturi in the Facts and Fiction edition of the News Gang. Good evening. Our sign language interpreter is Yula Nzale. Now, to our top stories tonight. President William Ruto's allies, among them the National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, faced the wrath of hostile crowds at a rally in Nyandarua County, where leaders from the region who supported the ouster of the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua were booed by residents. Speeches by Ichung'wah and Laikipia East MP Mwangi Kiunjuri were cut off by angry crowds that heckled them. Emmanuel Tor reports.
He took to the podium with gusto, but the crowd quickly turned hostile against the National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah in Olkalau, Nyandarua County.
Inajengwa hapo, ikiwekwa kablo, ipewe hawa vijana wapate kwa housing.
Ichung'wah's voice drowning in the noise, forcing him to cut short his speech, which had seen him switch from English to the local dialect. And when he got a favorable ground in Murang'a County, Ichung'wah commented on the heckling incident.
Kelele wapige, sisi tuangalie mambo ya kazi, au sio? Sindio? Siasa ikifika tutakuja tuulizane mbunge amefanya kazi gani. Wale wa kelele tuwaachie kelele. Wale wa ndevu tutawanyoa ndevu, na mwenye anataka kumea ime.
Nyandarua woman representative Faith Wairimo Getao also running into headwinds with a charged crowd in Engineer Modern Market, Kinangop, Nyandarua County. She too was forced to shorten her speech. Laikipia East MP Mwangi Kionjori also joining those who are having a bad day in the president's tour of the region.
Hamjambo tena.
But it was not all gloom and doom for the ruling camp, as Maragua MP Mary Wamaua, a key ally of the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, appeared to shift her loyalties.
Right from November, we were talking with Professor Kithure Kindiki na ako hapa. Your Excellency, kutoka December tulikuwa tumeanza kuongea na wewe. Na nikakwambia Your Excellency, wewe ni rafiki yangu. Isipokuwa tu ni hapo kidogo, kuteresa sio kuanguka. Niko hapa nitumie kama kada yako ya mkono. Your Excellency, nilianza hii maneno ya kusema lazima tukue ndani ya serikali. Kutoka Januari wakati nilikuwa nasunguza maneno ya basari.
Rafiki yetu ambaye alikuwa amepotea kidogo amepatikana, anaitwa Mheshimiwa Mary. Mnataka Wamaua wafanye kazi na William Ruto?
Haya, sasa tufanye namna hiyo. Asante sana. Basi huyu Wamaua mimi nitafanya kazi na yeye. Tumekubaliana ya kwamba hatutaki siasa ya ukabila na chuki na migawanyiko.
President Ruto also dismissing the move by the Control of Budget Margaret Nyakango to put brakes on bursaries by county executives.
Sisi tuna request national government ipatie ruksa counties government ziendelee kupatiana bursary hapa Murang'a. Your Excellency, iko barua iliandikwa na Control Budget. Akasema counties ziwache kupatiana bursary.
Mimi sikubaliani na ule mama ambaye alisema huyo Comptroller Budget alisema ya kwamba ati county governments hawafai kupatiana bursary.
The president's tour of Mount Kenya region continues Friday. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV.
Meanwhile, Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga claims President William Ruto is no longer the Mount Kenya region's kingpin, citing loss of support due to recent decisions. Speaking at a Council of Governors media engagement in Nairobi ahead of the August 12 Devolution Conference, Governor Kahiga said Ruto's warm reception was driven by development projects, not unwavering political backing. The governor attended Ruto's tour of Nyeri County on Tuesday.
Nafurahi kwa sababu rais amekuja na hii wiki imekuwa nzuri kwa sababu tumepata marupurupu. Tungetaka awe akiendelea kuja kwa sababu akija marupurupu yanapatikana na tuna furaha. Lakini mwito ni ule ule. Tuko pale pale. Ni vizuri nikuambie.
Kwa hivyo watu wa Mlimani hawajaanza kuomba mtu.
Unajua ni vizuri, mimi nimekuwa, si mimi mwenyewe pia nilimkaribisha Nyeri na kwa sababu ni rais na mimi ni gavana na nikampokea. Lakini hata yeye mwenyewe anajua uchangamfu uliokuwako mwanzo na ule uliokuwa wakati huu kuna tofauti. Rais ni kingpin wa Kenya, lakini pengine sio kingpin wa Mlima.
And related to the President's tour, the Law Society of Kenya has condemned Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja over his apparent political affiliation with the current government. LSK accuses him of undermining the Constitution and compromising the independence of the police service. In a statement, LSK President Faith Odhiambo emphasized that the IG's actions cast doubt on the integrity of the National Police Service. LSK is now calling for either an apology or resignation from the IG. In response, the National Police Service has firmly maintained that the IG acted within his authority, as Melita Oletenges now reports.
Mukenete nikona president ito aha na mugachokia gatho nimukwenda choke rigi nimukwenda choke rigi no wega thank you muno na ithuĩ twautahĩra itũ ndĩguo asanteni sana thank you.
It was a rare appearance at a political rally. The Inspector General of Police, fully dressed in uniform, bearing the emblem Utumishi kwa Wote, addressing supporters of President William Ruto. His presence sparked an uproar, with many Kenyans questioning the neutrality of the police service and its commitment to serving all citizens without bias. The Law Society of Kenya has now demanded an immediate apology from the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja for what they have labelled as unbecoming behaviour. Further, the LSK wants IG Kanja to step down from his position and give way to someone who will serve with integrity without political biases. The society also criticised Kanja for abandoning his oath of office and aligning with a political faction. Article 245 of the Constitution on the command of the National Police Service dictates that the IG shall exercise independent command over the National Police Service and perform any other functions prescribed by national legislation. The Law Society further pointed out that the IG has failed to address critical issues such as cases of abductions and insecurity, choosing instead to attend political rallies. National Police Service spokesperson Mushiri Nyaga, in a statement, defended the actions of the Inspector General of Police, stating that his presence in Nyeri was part of his official duties, including overseeing security arrangements during the President's development tour. Nyaga further urged Kenyans to disregard claims to the contrary, reaffirming that the National Police Service remains apolitical. The move by Inspector General Kanja is also being viewed as a step back by President William Ruto, who campaigned on the promise of an independent National Police Service. Ruto had previously accused his predecessors of using the police service and the criminal justice system to advance government interests and align with their political ambitions. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
The body of a missing Multimedia University student Sylvia Kemunto was recovered Wednesday night in a water tank at the rooftop of a hostel within the campus compound. Kemunto's body was discovered 3 days after her disappearance, with her family and the university fraternity now seeking answers. Our crime and investigations reporter Ode Francis filed this report.
The mysterious disappearance and tragic discovery of Sylvia Kemunto, a first-year multimedia student, has sent shockwaves across the country. Sylvia, who was pursuing mass communication and computer science course, vanished under suspicious circumstances on Sunday, March 30th of 2025. Sylvia's mother, back home in Kawangware, had sent her upkeep money through a church elder's phone. Concerned, she attempted to confirm whether Sylvia had received the funds, but her calls went unanswered. Alarmed by the silence, Sylvia's mother traveled to the university only to find that her daughter was missing.
Sylvia ile kitu aliniambia kuna kijana anamsumbua, ampendi, anamforce anataka akwe rafiki yake.
The school management confirmed her absence, prompting the mother to file a report at Langata police station where an occurrence book entry was made. On the day of her disappearance, Sylvia's roommate had left for church, leaving Sylvia alone in their Block B room, number 90. Investigations reveal that Sylvia's boyfriend, Eric Mutinda, also first-year electrical engineering student, visited her room around 1 p.m. that day. Eyewitness accounts suggest that Eric was seen struggling with a suitcase allegedly belonging to Sylvia as he moved it from her room on the third floor to his own residence in Block E room number 301. Later that night, Eric's roommate reportedly noticed the suitcase in their room but found it missing the next morning.
Mimi nikakuja majioni kitu ya 10 hapo. Nikapata the guy with the suitcase anajaribu kuilalia on the top of the head, hapo kwa head kama pillowcase, and then it felt uncomfortable, then akadecide kuiweka hapo tu kando ya hiyo desk. And then after that the morning kuamkia niliamka kitu 8 hapo, nikapata hiyo jamaa bado nikashatoka na yuko around, na the suitcase was also not around.
Police investigations began immediately. Tracing Sylvia's phone records, signal placed her within the university compound, but her phone was switched off approximately 10 p.m. on the same day she disappeared. This led the school management to initiate a search within the campus. On Wednesday, April 2nd, a foul smell emanating from Block E caught the attention of the search team. By afternoon, the source of the odor was identified, a water tank on the rooftop of one of the hostels. Inside, the decomposing body of Sylvia Kemunto was discovered 3 days after her disappearance. The retrieval process took nearly 2 hours as investigators noted that the tank had been sealed with wire and weighed down with a heavy stone, seemingly to mask the smell. Sylvia's body has since been transported to the city mortuary, where a postmortem examination awaits.
Mtoto akiuawa aruhusu kwa auawe, hakuna kupiga kelele, si alikuwa anapiga kelele hapo karibu, hakuna mwenye alikuwa anasikia.
It's an humble plea from the institution. If we can get an awareness to both the men and the female about campus relationships.
Now, this is where the suspect brought the body of Sylvia and stashed the body into this water tank. One of the questions that detectives will be unraveling is how did the suspect achieve this heinous act? Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Multimedia University, Nairobi.
An extremely tragic story right there. Over the last 3 months, 97 femicide cases have been reported, highlighting a troubling rise in gender-based violence. The revelation came during a public forum in Nairobi, where the Technical Working Group on Gender-Based Violence learned that the numbers shot up from 152 in 2023 to 172 in 2024, the highest in 5 years. At the forum, various groups, including civil society organizations, survivors, and commercial sex workers, shared moving testimonies with the task force. Ben Kirui reports.
After months of research and data analysis, the Nancy Baraza-led technical working group is now in the final stages of gathering public feedback before presenting its report to the president, tasked in January with tackling the growing crisis of femicide and gender-based violence (GBV) across the country. The group is making significant strides in its work. On the first day of public participation, the task force had powerful testimonies from various groups. Presidential Advisor on Women's Rights, Harriet Chigai, presented a shocking report revealing that more than 172 femicide cases had been recorded in the past 3 months alone.
Intimate partners, friends, and family members perpetrate the majority of killings, with about 75% of cases, killings were committed by persons who knew the murdered woman.
The judiciary and security agencies faced sharp criticism for their failure to take decisive action against the GBV. Civil rights groups delivered emotional accounts of the dangers faced by women, especially those advocating for justice for GBV survivors, who often become targets of violence, including sexual torture.
We need to move out of saying, "Huyu alichukua bwana yangu, huyu kizungu sex worker, huyu alikula fair." If I ask women in the room, who are majority, I know, including me identifying as a woman, ingekuwa sisi ni kulivenchia wanaume vitu wametufanyia, wangekuwa hai? Whether it's in political spaces, tunawasameheana ndio tunawapenda. And that's love.
Commercial sex workers also shared harrowing experiences, detailing the abuse they endure, even at the hands of security agencies.
I use a part of my body to earn an income. I do not steal. Just like the way a driver is using their hands to drive a car, I use a part of my body to earn an income. I am not taking anyone's rights away. As a woman who is living with HIV, my number one person to protect is my client when I am at work. I make sure protective measures are there and everything. But also the client has their own time to do that.
We are all horrified. I'm sure you too have seen it. We didn't know that's what is going on. We find women have been killed in B&Bs. Now we are hearing these are commercial sex workers, but they are human beings. These are people who have been raped since they were 4 years old. We have heard about the broken dreams of so many of them once you have been raped.
Many of them sorrowfully lamented that justice has remained elusive for victims of GBV-related killings.
There was a case in Nakuru where a murderer was got into the scene dumping a body of a sex worker. We have never succeeded in any case in court. Any person, any perpetrator who has perpetrated or killed a sex worker, they have never been taken to there is no justice for our community.
Defenders Coalition.
The public participation forum continues into its second day on Friday before expanding to other counties. Task Force Chairperson Nancy Baraza reaffirmed the commitment to finding lasting solutions to Kenya's GBV crisis.
The president wants actionable recommendations. That's why if you listened, we are asking what is actionable. So, and we want to put recommendations which can be acted on so that Kenyans don't feel they have been left alone. You have heard what these women are saying, being gang raped by police themselves. I think those are things from where we sat. I'm sure Kenyans don't know that is what is going on with women.
The technical working group on GBV, including femicide, has been banning the midnight oil for nearly 3 months now. With just 6 days left before submitting their report to the president, they are racing against time to gather input from all the 47 counties. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, 7 people have been injured, with scores other rendered homeless after a gang of young men attacked residents of Nayopong village in Trans Nzoia County. According to residents, the attack was instigated by a land dispute, as Laura Otieno now reports.
Palpable tension at Nayopong village in Trans Nzoia County. Some houses still engulfed in flames following an arson attack on Thursday by a group of young men. Despite the presence of police, the gang is still seen chasing after residents. A calm Thursday afternoon was suddenly disrupted by chants of war.
Tulikuwa na kijana mwingine anaitwa Lotumagwe. Akaenda kukaa, mimi nika karibu na shamba yangu hapo tu. Bas mnakoona watu ilitoka tu hivi. Akapata mimi kwa hapo, sisi naye na kukimbia namna hii, hiyo kijana akapata mimi nyuma. Akapata mimi paka kwa laka kwa shamba yangu hapo, akapikia mimi hapa.
Wako na mshale hii watu na wako na fimbo, wanafungia watu wa manyumba. Mimi niliona mapema ndio nikatoka, wakafunja mlango yangu, wakafunja kila kitu.
The residents say they were settled on this land by the government in 2022. They blame the attack on people who missed the allocated slots.
Wanapiga watu, poza hata ukiangalia kichwa yangu, mimi nilipigwa kwa sababu ya shamba yangu ambayo serikali walinipa.
Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali siku ya leo mahali popote mpo, kama mlipeana hii shamba kwa halali, mkuje mtueleze ya kwamba hii shamba ni yetu ama si yetu.
Trans Nzoia County Commissioner Gideon Oyangi has confirmed the attack, saying additional security has been deployed in order to restore calm. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
2 families in Nakuru are seeking justice after their kin were poisoned in unclear circumstances. In Salga, a middle-aged woman has been detained for 14 more days on allegations of poisoning a day-old infant, while a 30-year-old man is alleged to have poisoned his 2 children before consuming the substance. Mary Ann Nyambura reports.
The family of a 17-year-old girl living in Salga, Nakuru County is grieving the loss of an infant born just a day ago. The infant was poisoned in unclear circumstances by a woman said to be a family friend. This item serving as a reminder of their departed kin.
Mtoto alikuwa anatoa hii pofu kwa nini? Na jaribu kumpangusa na muuliza ni nini? Ati huyu mtoto ni kama upepo vile tumetembea kwa pikipiki. Ai, hapana. Msichana akasema, "Mam, kuna kitu mtoto ananuka." Na kitu ikaniambia na sweta. Huyu mtoto sasa amekuwa na sweta vile nimemwacha, alikuwa na sweta. Na sasa yeye hana sweta. Na sweta iko wapi? Ati mimi sijui. Kumbe amechukua sweta vile alipea huyu mtoto tawa. Mtoto alitapika.
Hiyo kitendo kilikuwa kibaya sana. Hata mimi nilistuka sana kuona kweli ni mama wa kanisa na si mama ambaye ni mgeni sana na mimi. Ni mama ambaye nimesha kumuona mara kwa mara.
Mama vile alienda duka. Mimi nikabaki hapa nikikula nini machungwa. Yeye alikuwa kwa kiti na mtoto, lakini mtoto alikuwa akiingia kwa nyumba anakataza, anaambia watoto muende mcheze nje. Sasa mimi sikujua ni nini inaweza happen hapo. Yeye alikuwa tuna mtoto hapo kwa kiti. Mimi dakika kidogo nasikia mtoto anaanza kutoa sauti.
The suspect, Jennifer Mukomele, was arrested and presented at the Molo Law Courts on Thursday, where detectives have been granted 14 more days to detain her as police conclude investigations.
Consequently, the respondent to be held for 14 days at Rongai Police Station, pending conclusion of investigations.
In yet another case, Lillian Ayeta is in anguish after her twin sons, aged 2, were allegedly poisoned by their father in Kiamunyi. One child died while the other is receiving treatment at the Nakuru Teaching and Referral Hospital. The suspect, 30-year-old Robert Sitienei, also consumed the substance.
Mimi nikakimbia kwa nyumba. Nikaenda kufika kwa nyumba. I found my kids. They are crying. Wamepupu. Mama pupu. Imejaa kila mahali. Baba yao simuoni. Mimi nikatoka nje. Nikaitana somebody to come and help me. Baba mmoja, mimi mwingine abeba mwingine. Mimi nikaanza kukimbia.
Detectives in Rongai sub-county are probing both incidents. Miriam Nyambura, Citizen TV.
Yet another story of horrific suffering of humanity. To another story, Indian authorities have detained a Kenyan woman, Emily Kanini Roda, after she was allegedly caught with 1.7 kilograms of cocaine worth over 270 million shillings at Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport in Mumbai on Tuesday. Roda, who traveled from Nairobi, claims she was handed the luggage by a woman named Millicent before flying through Doha and ultimately reaching Mumbai, where she was arrested by customs officials. The arrest has raised alarm over the growing number of Kenyans involved in international drug trafficking, with another case involving Margaret Nduta in Vietnam still under negotiation. Nduta, convicted of smuggling 2 kilograms of cocaine, was sentenced to death, a ruling the Kenyan government is appealing. Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi revealed that more than 1,000 Kenyans are currently incarcerated in foreign prisons around the world. Right, and on that note, we're taking a short break here on Tonight. When we come back, we'll be telling you about the data point. We're reflecting on the university funding model, what the president said, what the ruling says, and of course, the next steps, especially for learners that are currently in first and second years. Stay tuned for that. On Data Point tonight, we revisit the numbers into the university funding model as HELB invites fresh appeals into banding of students.
Join us for an unforgettable journey to the world's largest trade fair, the Canton Fair in Guangzhou, China, from 15th to 27th April. Explore thousands of products, meet global suppliers, and experience China's rich culture. Enjoy guided tours, shopping, and local experiences, all while discovering new business opportunities. Enjoy this and more in 9 nights and 10 days, starting from $2,450 per person sharing. Visit viewtravel.com or call and WhatsApp 0703 254 254. View Travel. Dream, explore, discover.
Songoshira verera ontasera.
Get business credit card from Cooperative Bank and pay for business stock and supplies on credit instead of using your own money. You can make payments in Kenya, abroad, and online.
Niliwaambia. Halo. Niletee kama kawaida.
Kama sio kabagara, wacha kiumane.
Ya ungali na ya chapwe ni kabagara. chapati ni tamu sana.
Omera, sere bila Kavagara sio sere.
Dukani usitishe unga, itisha Kavagara.
Nauliza unafanya nini hapa?
Jiten, please. I'm your mother.
What? Martha?
Can you be honest with me? What's going on between you and Daniela?
Right, on Data Point tonight we are reflecting on the university funding model, and we'll begin with what the president had to say about a decision by the Court of Appeal on that new funding model of the universities.
We have a new funding model. It was taken to court. The court has now cleared to say it is the right model because it treats children according to the ability of their parents, so that children from poor families can get up to 90% scholarship.
So first of all, what the president said is not accurate, because the court did not say that they have agreed with the model. Let's see what they said, because there are 3 judges that sat in the Court of Appeal. They're still sitting because this is an active matter. Justices Patrick Kiage, Weldon Correll, and Joel Ngugi are the ones that are hearing this particular matter. And when they gave their ruling, because they considered what had been given to them, the government was asking for a stay of the orders given by the High Court, which had found this university funding model to be unconstitutional. So, of course, the High Court decision was stayed, meaning it is not yet constitutional. It's only that the implication of that decision has been stayed or cannot be implemented at the moment. And therefore, the Attorney General, the Higher Education Loans Board, and the Universities Fund have been ordered to, within 14 days, publicize a mechanism that students can use to appeal against the decisions that were made to put them in certain bans. I'll be telling you what those bans are. And of course, the aggrieved students will have an opportunity to do that. So the decision that the government is appealing against was decided by Justice Chacha Mwita, who said that the university funding model is discriminatory and violates students' legitimate expectations, especially when they were expecting they would be funded through the differentiated unit cost, which is the system that was being used before the new one that was instituted by the president or his administration. The model was found to be unconstitutional for lack of public participation, which is what had led to that decision by the High Court. Now, just to remind you what is in contents, the new funding model splits the learners into 5 bands. So each band has a maximum income from the household level. So band 1 is a family that gets up to 5,995 shillings per month. And if you look at the cohort of 2024, meaning the students that sat KCSE 2023 and qualified to join universities, the proportion is about 16% of families that earn up to 5,995. Band 2 are parents or households that earn up to 23,670. We are talking about 18% of the cohort. Band 3 are learners who come from families that earn up to 70,000 shillings per month, and you're talking about 18%. Now, majority who have been put in band 4 apparently come from families that make up to 120,000 shillings per month, and those that beyond that, that is over 120,000 shillings per month, are in band 5, which accounts for about 8%, not 90% of the cohort. Now, so to finance these bands, after describing what that is, so someone in band 1, meaning a person that is whose family is receiving up to 5,995 shillings, they would be given 70% scholarship by the government. They would be given a loan from HELB of 25%. So in total, that is about 95%. Only 5% would come from the family, and they would also get an upkeep, which is the highest for all the bands at 60,000 shillings every financial or every academic year. For learners in band 2, remember, those that whose families earn up to 23,670, that gets government scholarship of 60%, 30% would be a loan, and 10% would come from the family. We'll be talking about some case point of some of the courses to understand the figures, and the upkeep would go down to 55,000 shillings per academic year. Band 3, you're talking about 50% government scholarship, 30% loan, 20% by the family, and of course 50,000 of upkeep. Band 4, 40% government scholarship, 30% of loan, and 30% coming from the family. Upkeep is 45,000, which again is a loan. And band 5, the learners whose families earn up more than 120,000 shillings, the government will only give them a scholarship of 30%, a loan of 30%, and the family would contribute 40%. Let's take a look at some of the examples that you can reflect on this evening. If you've been invited to study Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery at Moi University, so the course has been rated at 612,000 shillings per academic year, and you have to be there for 6 years for you to complete that course. So the government scholarship, if you're in band 1, meaning your family earns up to 5,995, the government would sponsor you up to 428,000. The student in band 5, meaning your family earns more than 120,000 shillings, you'd only be funded up to 183,000 shillings. The loan from help that you receive in band 1, that would be 153,000. For a learner who comes from a family that is in a band 5, that would be 183,000. The family would contribute 30,000 for a learner in band 1. The family would contribute 244,000 for a learner who is in band 5 of 120,000 shillings and more. And of course, the upkeep, which is a loan, you can factor into that in. Let's take a look at what that converts into. If you're a medicine student in Moi University and you come from band 1, the total loan you receive by the time you finish your school, it will be 1.28 million shillings, which you'll have to clear. The family will make a contribution of 183,600 shillings for the 6 years. In total, the burden here, because the family and the loan, you have to pay this loan. So it comes to a total of 1.46 million shillings. If you come from a family that is considered well up, of 120,000 shilling earning per month, then your loan will be 1.34. So compare those two figures, and then the family will have to contribute up to 1.47 million shillings. So in total, the family and the person, in this case the student, will have a burden of 2.81 million shillings. At the end of 6 years, they graduate with their degrees, but you can see what the burden will have taken them. If you're to talk about a student who is taking Bachelor of Arts, this is one of the cheapest courses in the country. The cost is 122,000 per academic year. It takes about 4 years in most universities. The government scholarship for someone in band 1, remember you get up to 70% of sponsorship. That will be 85,680 shillings. For someone in band 4, this is different. A person whose family earns up to 120,000 shillings, but more than 70,000. That will be 48,960. The loan from HELB will be 30,600 for band 1, 36,720 for band 4. The family would contribute 6,120 for band 1. And band 4 will contribute 36,720. The upkeep loan, of course, remember, 60,000 for band 1 and 45,000 for band 4. Let's see how it looks when you do the total. At the end of the 4 years, so the student who comes from band 1 will have had a total loan of 362,400 shillings. The family contribution for those 4 years would have been 24,480. So in total, the total burden for the family and the loan is 386,000. For students in band 4, whose family earns between 70,000 shillings and 120,000 shillings, the loan, 326,000. The total family contribution, 146. So that comes to 473,760. So let's compare between Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. For two students who went to the same school, one was called to study medicine, the other one was called to study Bachelor of Arts. If you're in band 1, so the student in band 1 will have spent 1.46 million shillings, the family burden. For Bachelor of Arts, will have spent 386,000 shillings, 880. So this is burden for the family as well as the loan they will receive from HELB, inclusive of the loan for upkeep. For a student who is studying medicine from band 5, the burden is 2.81 million shillings. For a student studying Bachelor of Arts but in band 5, the total burden is 502,000 shillings. So what does this mean? It may mean that families will also be looking at the cost of a program for them to decide, what do I study? Even if you qualify for medicine and you cannot afford the burden of 2.81 million shillings, would that make you go and study a cheaper course, in this case Bachelor of Arts? Food for thought. So let's take a look at what the High Court said. Justice Chacha Mwita said that the model introduces classes that are based on perceived financial ability. He also said that there is discrimination, which is based on the type of school that a learner attended, because the means testing instrument considers, did you go to a private school or a public school? It also introduces age as a factor in accessing funding. The judge also said that there is ambiguous and unknown term household income, which is not properly defined, and also said that all these violate Article 27 of the Constitution, which talks about that you have the freedom or right not to be discriminated against. Now, the next steps, so the High Court decided, the Court of Appeal has said that we are staying execution of this decision. So HELB is required to publicize the appeals mechanism, which they have done. They have just about 14 days. They have to finish by around the 8th or 9th of April, which is sometime next week. The students are expected to lodge their funding appeals with HELB, and HELB is supposed to review the means testing instrument score for the learners that will have lodged their complaints. And of course, the funding model, these institutions, the government institutions, must communicate to the learners and stakeholders that the funding model may change as soon as the decision at the Court of Appeal has been rendered. So that's what you need to know about the university funding model, what the president said, and the reality that is in the papers and the decisions of the court and what's happening at the Court of Appeal. That's Data Point for this week. Now, to more stories, the murder trial of Tob Cohen has officially begun with the first witness testifying at his residence in Kitisuru, Nairobi. The court session, held away from the cameras, was conducted under tight security as the witness is currently under protection. This hearing follows a High Court ruling in February which dismissed an application to release the main suspect, Sarah Wairimu, on bond until two key witnesses have testified. Gatete Njoroge reports.
At the start of the trial before Lady Justice Diana Mochache, the prosecution team led by Senior Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, Gikui Gishuhi, the state made its case, telling the court that it has gathered evidence which it will rely on to prove to the court that this was a premeditated murder. The prosecution says the evidence in their possession will point to the main suspect, Sarah Wairimu.
This case is based on circumstantial evidence.
In her response to the prosecution, Wairimu, through her lawyer, said at an appropriate time they will challenge the manner in which the case was reopened after it was withdrawn in 2022 and former DPP Nordin Haji requested the court to order a public inquest. She further argues that she is certain there will be no evidence to suggest she committed the crime.
We cannot separate this trial from the initial criminal case 60 of 2019 and from the inquest. All these facts must flow together. We shall be able to demonstrate that this is not a fresh suit. This is not a fresh trial.
The session at Kibera Law Courts, attended by the late Cohen's family, was adjourned. The trial later continued in Kitisuru, where the first witness, who is under protection, gave his testimony. The court session taking place where the remains of Dutch tycoon Tob Cohen were found on September 13, 2019. His body was discovered 54 days after he went missing, buried inside a septic tank on his property. Cohen's last known sighting was on July 19, 2019, weeks before police began investigating his disappearance. During the investigation, authorities questioned those close to him in his final days. The subsequent murder trial reached a turning point in November 2022 when then DPP Nordin Haji withdrew charges against his widow Sarah Wairimu and co-suspect Peter Karanja. Haji informed the court that he was entering a nolle prosequi, referring the case to an inquest due to significant contradictions that had marred the proceedings. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has once again cautioned the youth against the misuse of social media to spread hate and inflammatory narratives. He emphasizes that such behavior poses a threat to national unity and peace. This follows a similar warning from the Director General of the National Intelligence Service, who condemned the growing trend of cyber misuse, stressing that it is unacceptable and will not be tolerated.
Misuse of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence to spread disinformation, inflammatory rhetoric, and perpetuate technology-related threats such as cyber fraud is of great concern to all of us. Even though advancement in technology brings with them renewed security challenges, they also present opportunities for combating them.
In the face of a fast-evolving and technological-driven world, the continent is contending with tech-related threats, transnational organized crime, terrorism, climate change, and other emerging threats. Notably, terrorist groups have in the past exploited uncertainty to entrench their activities, advance their narratives, and indoctrinate citizens.
Investment, Trade and Industry Cabinet Secretary Lee Kinyanjui has termed the new reciprocal tariff by President Donald Trump a mixed bag of challenges and opportunities for Kenya. According to the CS, while a 10% tariff on Kenyan exports to the U.S. is not as high as other African peers, the country will still have to grapple with high cost of exporting goods to the U.S. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Sing'oei has indicated that the country will be seeking a waiver of the tariff to protect Kenya's trade interests in the U.S. Safina Chengoma reports.
Fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
In a drastic shift from American trade policy, President Donald Trump unveiled a new trade strategy which imposes reciprocal tariffs on 185 countries in a move designed to counteract foreign tariffs and trade barriers that, according to President Trump, have placed U.S. businesses at a disadvantage.
Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple, can't get any simpler than that.
Trump announced a minimum 10% tariff on all imports to the U.S. and additional reciprocal tariffs for 20 African countries. Kenya, whose trade with the U.S. stood at $1.5 billion in 2024, is among states slapped with a 10% reciprocal tariff. This means that key exports to the U.S., including tea, coffee, textiles and horticultural products like flowers, fresh fruits and vegetables, will be greatly affected. Analysts are also predicting job losses and reduced revenues for businesses that depend on the American market. Investment, Trade and Industry Cabinet Secretary Lee Kinyanjui says the 10% tariff imposed on Kenya is lower than the rates imposed on key textile exporting competitors. This, he says, will place Kenya as an alternative sourcing hub for U.S. textile buyers. Kinyanjui further states that Kenya could extend its manufacturing spectrum and begin producing goods that are now more expensive in countries slapped with higher tariffs. Trump's reciprocal and universal tariffs also threaten to override the tariff-free provisions on the African Growth and Opportunity Act, a U.S. legislation that had regulated trade with most African countries in the last few decades, which is set to expire in September 2025. Through his X account, Kenya's Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Sing'oei indicated that the country will be seeking a waiver from the U.S. government, holding that the new U.S. tariff should not be applicable before the lapse of the AGOA agreement or if it is repealed by Congress. A statement by the South African presidency on Thursday has indicated plans to negotiate a new bilateral trade deal with Washington after the country was slapped with a 30% tariff. South Africa expressed concern over what was termed as punitive tariffs that serve as a barrier to trade and shared prosperity. Lesotho is included in the long list of America's worst offenders in trade and has been slapped with extra tariffs of as high as 50%, Madagascar at 47%, Mauritius 40% and Botswana's 37%.
Foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream.
The tariffs, which take effect from 5th April 2025, come as many African countries are already grappling with effects of the U.S. foreign aid cuts, which provided health and humanitarian assistance to vulnerable countries. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV.
Back home, fake medical practitioners and operators of fake facilities could face jail term or hefty fines once new digital health regulations come into force. Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale says his ministry is now seeking to tame fake healthcare workers and facilities that threaten the safety of patients. Appearing before the Senate Committee on Delegated Legislation, Duale says the new regulations will streamline services within the health sector. Stephen Leto was there.
Data in the Ministry of Health shows cases where the medical space has been infiltrated by fake practitioners, with some even setting up bogus medical facilities to con unsuspecting patients while endangering their lives. Health Cabinet Secretary Eden Duale, while appearing in Parliament since his appointment as Health Cabinet Secretary, told the senators that the digital health regulations will go a long way in weeding out fake practitioners.
If you are treated by a quack, like the famous Dr. Mugo, if you are treated by a quack, the moment you go for payment, the system will tell you you will not be paid. SHA will not pay. Why? The person who treated you is not a qualified clinician, is not a qualified medical doctor, is not a registered nurse.
According to the regulations, there shall be a health worker registry in the system, which shall be the single source of reference for all information related to health workers for purposes of health information exchange and accessing the system. Duale says the registry system will, for all practitioners, have certified personal details, qualification details, regulatory body that license the health worker, and valid practice license.
This system further will root out all fake health facilities. The health facilities must be registered by a regulatory body within the Ministry of Health.
According to Afya House, the digital system will pick real-time data from the professional regulators, including the KMPDC and Clinical Council. In the regulations, a health worker shall, subject to proof of valid licensing by the relevant regulatory body, apply to the agency for registration to access the health worker registry. Duale says the new system will eliminate fake health facilities that were notorious of providing fake surgeries and services under the defunct NHIF, gobbling billions of shillings that the ministry once streamlined under SHA.
We will know when a doctor is in his place. Right now, we don't know. A doctor is in a facility. A doctor, if he doesn't pay his registration license fee, the system will lock him out.
Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
Now to a story of inspiration. The veteran squad of Mutei FC, made up of grandmothers aged 50 and above, from Uasin Gishu County, Kenya, held South Africa's Gauteng Gogos to a 1-1 draw in their second match of the tournament. After a tough loss to Tulamahashe FC yesterday, the resilient team now prepares to take on the winner of the United States vs. France match on Friday. Emily Chebet reports.
The second day of the Grannies tournament in South Africa saw the Uasin Gishu-based Mutei FC celebrating a hard-fought 1-1 draw against the host team Gauteng Gogos. It was a result that meant a lot for the Kenyan team.
Game ilikuwa kali sana. Katika awamu wa kwanza, sisi ndio tulifunga ya kwanza. Na wao pia wakatufunga ya pili. Na tulipoenda kupumzika, tukarudi kwa kiwanja na kila moja aling'ang'ana na tukufungana tena.
Despite losing their first match to another South African team yesterday, the Grannies remain unfazed. If anything, they are determined to leave a mark in the 17-nation championship.
Kama naingia ndege, sisi nashangaa. Kwanza mwenyewe mimi nashangaa sana. Sasa tunakaa kidogo ndege nafanya bibi. Roho yangu napiga nasema, hey, sijui itaanguka ama tabanya nini, na alikuwa mimi nasika imani kusema kitu imeomba tangu kuanza Mungu atakamilisha.
Nilikuwa nimeambiwa na dadangu kwamba ndege ikipita mahali penye iko mawingu inakaa kama gari imepita kwa pumps. Kwa hiyo wakati baba nilikuwa nimeingia kwa ndege nilikuwa na usingizi mingi. Juu the previous night sikulala. So ilipofika mahali ambapo ndege inatembea ninasikia hapa sasa tumepita penye iko mawingu mingi.
For these women aged 50 and above, football is about fitness and passion. But this tournament is also a journey of discovery. Most of them had never been to Nairobi, let alone outside the country.
Kwanza kabla kuingia pahali ya kulala, tunaingia kitu kingine naitwa lift. Sijui lift ni nini. Si naingia hapo, hiyo kitu napeleka sisi juu, kama nyumba yako na ulala iko juu, iko koroba, naenda mpaka hapo. Hiyo kitu nasimama na punguka peke yake. Sina shangaa sana.
Sisi tumezoea kufungua yenye unaingiza ndani alafu mlango inafunguka. Lakini hii unaweka tu kwa mlango na namba yake hivi. Kama hiyo namba sio hiyo haiwezi funguka. Sasa ukiweka fungua mlango inachifungua mwenyewe. Sasa tulikuwa tunashangaa hii ni nini? Na tukatetemeka sisi wengine hatukujua kuweka. Tuliweka upside down, mlango haifunguki.
Though they came to South Africa for football, it's clear they will leave with much more than just experience. They will return home with new memories, lessons, and unforgettable lifelong experiences. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV.
Very interesting story. You're never too old to take part in an international tournament. We're taking a break here on Tonight. When we come back, we have business and sports, and later on we have the news gang reflecting on the latest in the current affairs. Stay tuned for that. Retailers in Kenya decry skyrocketing rent as the single greatest barrier to sustainable business growth.
Royal Mabati Factory Limited, your one-stop shop for affordable and quality guaranteed roofing solutions. Grab our offers. Pay 40%, get same-day production, relax at home, and enjoy free delivery. Call us on 0722 638383. Order today at www.royalmabati.com.
When I have back pain, I reach for 2 tablets of Panadol Extra. It's boosted by caffeine for fast relief of strong pain, like headache, toothache, and muscle pain. And I am finally released from pain and ready to be there for those who need me. Try Panadol Extra for fast and effective relief from strong pain.
Vuna zaidi na mavuno. Mbinu yetu maalum ya mazao na udongo ina virutubishi 12 muhimu, hivyo kuongeza mavuno kwa zaidi ya 30%. Mbolea ya mavuno inaboresha rutuba ya udongo, hurekebisha asidi na kusawazisha pH kwa mazao yenye afya. Ikiwa imejaa virutubishi vidogo, mbolea ya mavuno huongeza ladha, umbile, rangi na lishe ya mazao yako. Imethibitishwa kufanya vyema katika hali zote za hewa na kutoa matokeo ya muda mrefu. Tumia mbolea iliyochanganywa kutoka kwa mavuno pekee na sio mbolea iliyonyooka kama vile DAP na urea, kwani itaunguza udongo wako.
Running out of water again? With PowerTank, never worry about water shortages. PowerTank has been awarded the prestigious Super Brand status in East Africa for quality, reliability, and distinction. PowerTanks are crafted from food-grade polyethylene, UV stabilized and double-layered for unparalleled durability. Backed by a 10-year limited warranty and an expected lifespan of 30 years plus, we offer free nationwide delivery. Buy online or call 0779 000 000 today to get your PowerTank. Feel and chill with PowerTank.
Karibuni sana. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, that shirt has seen better days. Mara, it's your faded shirt. Mara, it's your faded roof. Look at our roof from Mabati Rolling Mills. Still as vibrant after all these years. Unlike your shirt.
Yes, MRM steel roofing tiles are made using advanced color coating technology that makes the color last.
The tiles are even wider, so you use less pieces.
Which saved us money. So you mean Mabati Rolling Mills saves you money?
Yeah!
Steal the show with versatile, oriental and elegantile steel roofing tiles. Backed by a genuine warranty only from Mabati Rolling Mills. Visit a dealership or call us today at 0788 202020.
Retailers across Kenya have raised the alarm over soaring rental costs, which they say threaten the sustainability of their businesses. The Retail Trade Association of Kenya is urging both government and private sector stakeholders to address this issue and other pressing challenges, warning that without intervention, the retail sector could face significant setbacks. Dennis Otieno tells us more.
In a sector already grappling with stiff competition and evolving consumer habits, the rising cost of retail spaces is adding a heavy burden. According to officials from the Retail Trade Association of Kenya, many retailers, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, are struggling to secure affordable, strategically located spaces to operate their businesses.
Would like to implore upon landlords of commercial properties to just realize that when a business owner comes to them and they are determined with their product to grow, to actually be a supportive system rather than killing a business.
Speaking during the final day of the Retail Summit in Nairobi, retailers also pointed out that the dwindling availability of quality retail spaces is another significant hurdle. They argued that the current rental structures tend to favor large commercial entities, leaving smaller retailers with few viable options.
The malls and the locations that tend to attract traffic have such a high cost in terms of rental, in terms of rent, and the cost that landlords are looking into per square footage. The cost of business locations and malls and these commercial locations really has to come down to also be able to accommodate the growing retailers and not just the big boys in the markets.
In a bold proposal aimed at alleviating the crisis, the association urged stakeholders to move away from traditional fixed rent structures.
There could be a shift, and I know a few of the retailers are already using that system, where you don't have fixed rents. You have a baseline of rent, and then the top-up is based on your performance, which is very important because then it gives both the retailer and the mall owner the task of working together towards bringing in the crowds.
Property owners present at the summit acknowledge the challenges, but emphasize the need for a balanced approach that safeguards all parties.
At the end of the day, the retailers cannot occupy space that hasn't been developed by the developers, so they've got to align themselves with what makes developers work. And similarly, developers can't be successful if the retailers themselves are not successful.
For now, stakeholders remain hopeful that the collaborative efforts between the public and private sectors will yield practical solutions to secure affordable retail spaces and stabilize rental costs. Dennis Otieno, Citizen TV.
Now, the formulation of Kenya's budget starts months before the actual reading is done in June of every year. And with only 3 months left to the end of the current financial year, the budget-making process is in high gear. Jimmy Mbogo sat down with the Finance and Planning Committee chairperson, Kuria Kimani, to discuss the progress of the budget-making process and when Kenyans can expect to give their views on the upcoming finance bill.
The rejection of the Finance Bill 2024 showed how the population is now more involved in accountability of the budget and how it is financed. According to the Finance and Planning Committee chairperson Kuria Kimani, this level of awareness, although progressive, has come with its own set of challenges.
The good thing, the important thing about that discussion on the Finance Bill and why it's a good thing it went the way it did, it also brought more attention also on the expenditure side. Okay, and therefore, it was a good debate and it was a good conversation, and I'm very happy that Kenyans now are more informed.
And with April 30th fast approaching, when the National Treasury is expected to table the budget estimates as well as their proposal for revenue-raising measures through the Finance Bill, Kuria is calling on Kenyans to take advantage of the public participation window to share their views.
As per Section 41 of the PFM Act, we are actually required to have a finance bill every year. That is a law. But my really urge to Kenyans is don't just reject for the sake of it. Read, understand, and ask if you need clarification. Having a finance bill is not necessarily a punitive thing.
In the budget-making calendar, the last 3 months of the end of the financial year are the most crucial.
This begins with a submission of draft budget estimates for the next year, expected to be taken to Parliament by the 30th of April. This is followed by public participation on the finance bill and stakeholder engagement, including the public sector, private sector and civil society, to provide input on tax proposals between April and May. The bill is then taken back to the Finance and Planning Committee of the National Assembly for review and incorporation of recommendation from stakeholders, which is followed by the reading of the budget on the second Thursday of June by the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, who present the National Budget Statement to Parliament outlining government spending plans. However, this has to be debated in Parliament, where the lawmakers will discuss and make amendments before passing the bill. The legislators are also expected to review and pass or reject the bills together with the appropriation bill before the government spending is approved for different ministries, departments and agencies, bringing an end to the financial year. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The Federation of Kenya Employers is calling for a review of the housing levy, proposing a cap on the period of payment for the tax. Speaking in Kisumu on Thursday, FKE CEO Jacqueline Mugo said the tax is among the many statutory deductions that have caused a significant shrink in workers' take-home pay. And as Laura Otieno now reports, Mugo said that the increasing deductions are affecting productivity in the Kenyan workforce.
Speaking at the annual general meeting that brought together stakeholders from the Western region, FKE CEO Jacqueline Mugo called for a sit-down with the National Treasury to review the existing statutory deductions. Mugo saying that the rising deductions have also impacted employers who are struggling to comply with the Employment Act of 2007, which prohibits them from deducting more than 2/3 of an employee's gross salary.
In many instances that an employer has had to look at where they can help the employees or remove some of the non-statutory deductions, because there are also employees who take cooperative loans and other loans which they request the employer to deduct on their pay, and the employers have had to say no to this so that they can focus on the statutory deductions.
Further, the Federation raised questions on the housing levy, calling for further engagement with the government.
If there's any way in which the level of contribution can be reviewed, and also if we can put a cap on the period for which that payment is done, because we know a substantive amount of money has been raised so far, which has helped build the houses that have been built. So we are going to remain engaged with the government on this matter.
In the meeting, Kisumu Water Services Company Managing Director Thomas Odongo was elected to take over from Dr. Margaret Olo as the FKE Western Regional President. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Small and medium-sized enterprises in Kenya stand to gain from a renewed 3 billion shilling partnership between NCBA and the African Guarantee Fund, AGF. The agreement, extended for 10 years, will provide SMEs with increased access to credit facilities and technical support for sustainable projects. Through AGF's risk-sharing mechanism, NCBA has already disbursed nearly 17 billion shillings to SMEs with a focus on women and youth. In the renewed agreement, AGF will also provide a capacity development grant to further enhance the bank's ability to serve sustainable and women-led SMEs.
One of the biggest challenges is getting the kind of collateral that we'll be asking for. And what this partnership really solves is exactly that an SME does not have to have the collateral to be able to access the financing. As long as the business makes sense, with this guarantee from AGF, they'll be able to access financing and well-priced financing from NCBA.
So what we'll do is mainly to work together with the SMEs through technical assistance to make them loan ready. Because, sometimes the bank is willing to support those SMEs, but they are not bankable. And what is new on this program is the technical assistance that will be working together with NCBA to develop a pipeline of loan-ready SMEs.
The inaugural Sunshine Development Tour golf tournament produced thrills and excitement in the final holes as Celestine Nsanzuera from Rwanda won the tournament in the last 3 holes at the Great Rift Valley Golf Resort in Naivasha. Celestine did not panic in the final round to score 2 under par 69 to take his overall score after 4 rounds to 4 under par 280. He finished a comfortable 4 shots ahead of overnight leader John Legirma, who finished on level par 284. 3 other golfers, including Dismas Indiza, Greg Snow and Samuel Njoroge, finished tied in 3rd position with a score of 4 over par 288. There was a playoff at the 18th hole to decide the last 2 players that will play in the final Sunshine Tournament after Isaiah Otuke, Justus Madoya and Mike Kisia finished tied in 9th position. Kisia then finished 9th, Justus Madoya 10th and Otuke 11th.
Rwanda.
I started hacking, then I came down. I was like, still okay, I can do it. So then I turned number 11, I get bogey, which was okay. Number 12, I get birdie. Then that's where I started to feel like I can win it.
I had a shaky round. I think I was fatigued at some point, but yeah, it didn't go as expected. But that's the game. Anything is bound to happen. It's part of the sport.
The Kenya team to the World Masters Athletics Indoor Championships is back in the country after a good outing in the United States, where the 9 athletes scooped 5 gold medals and 3 silver medals. All the athletes returned together, led by double gold medalist Eric Sikuku. Sikuku closed the championship for Kenya with a gold medal in the 10-kilometer race walk under heavy rains. There was song and dance at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, with the athletes displaying their medals to the fans who went to receive them. Athletics Kenya is now asking the government to build an indoor athletics facility in Kenya because the masters and also current athletes have a big challenge at indoor games.
Competition ya masters iko juu. Ni wazee lakini ni uzee tu kwa miaka. On the ground mambo si rahisi. Tumeshinda hivi lakini pia haikuwa rahisi. Tumetoa ulimi huko.
Hiyo ni kuonyesha vile sasa walikuwa wakifanya wakati walikuwa wachanga, wanaendelea na kuwa the same, na ni mfano mzuri and a very good example to the current elite athletes and the upcoming athletes.
Congratulations to Team Kenya. The National Olympic Committee has launched an ambitious program to assist refugee athletes take part in the upcoming Olympic sporting events. Led by President Paul Tergat, the Olympic Committee of Kenya launched the Athlete Support Program, where 23 refugee athletes have been selected to begin intensive training. Their target is the Dakar 2026 Youth Olympic Games in Senegal and the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Games. The 23 were picked from a pool of 108 refugee athletes from the Kakuma Refugee Camp, Kalobeye Integrated Settlement, Dadaab Refugee Camp, and urban refugees from other parts of the country.
Need to train hard to make sure this Los Angeles, which is 2028, I make sure nitang'ang'ana nionekane, at least ni support pia refugee wenzangu.
It has really been my focus, my goals, I'm really hoping that this time round I'll make it, God willing. I'm just focusing to train hard, at least to run some good times, and all is possible.
A group of Kenyan bikers on a tour around Africa on motorbikes is now in Senegal as they wind up the 3rd leg of the tour, covering more than 20,000 kilometers of riding. Senegal is their 16th country in the 3rd leg that started in Namibia 2 months ago. 10 countries were covered in the month of March, while at the beginning of April, 3 days ago, the team was in Sierra Leone before crossing over to Guinea-Bissau, and finally to Senegal, where the 3rd leg ends in Almadies Dakar at the farthest point of Africa on the west. The fourth leg in the month of April will take the team to North Africa, where they will ride through Mauritania, Western Sahara, Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia. They have so far raised nearly 5 million shillings in their 50 million shilling target. They are raising funds for education of the less privileged. The tour that started in December 2024 will end in June.
The Around Africa team, okay?